We call this next Charter Review Commission meeting 2025-02 to order. It says 2025-02? That's the old one, I'm sorry. 2026-01, there we go. And we'll start with a prayer, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. And I don't think anybody's called in to do an invocation or Pastor Miller, would you do us the honor? And then would Mr. Gom, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Be honored, thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this evening.
Let's go ahead and stand.
Heavenly Father, we thank you this evening for this group gathered around the table. We just ask, Lord, for wisdom to prevail, for you to lead us and guide us in the way we should go. We thank you for the blessing of this 2026. And Father, even as the cold falls outside, let your warmth, Father, just lead us and continue to guide us. Bless each and every person here, and let us do what's right for this city to glorify you. And we lift you up in all things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and Happy New Year. Before we do start, I just wanted to make sure, I think we covered it last time, but I was trying to see it in the minutes. I just wanted to double check. Did we request that the attorneys look over the changes and to present to us what would be said on the ballot should it be approved by the city council?
I do not remember that when I did the minutes.
Okay, then
If we could do roll call?
oh, yeah. Thank you for helping me.
No problem. Mr. Delgado? Mr. Myers is absent. Mr. Miller? Mr. Gom? Mr. Norris? Mr. O'Neill? Ms. Sepp? Ms. Kaufhold? Mr. Chandler is absent. Mr. Weinberg? Thank you.
And thank you. I get so focused, I forget the order. Well, then, before I even start, then let's go ahead and do the adoption of minutes at this time. And hopefully, people were able to look it over. Anybody needs to make any amendments to the minutes? Okay, being that there is no, may I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
By Phil Winberg, a second. By Mark Miller. And all in favor? Aye. Aye. All against, by same sign. Unanimously approved. Okay. Public comments. We'll do the public comments now. If there is a public comment at this time. Yes. Bill Batten.
Bill Batten, 586.
You want to hit the button? No, it's red.
Sorry, my bad. Bill Batten, 586 Ocean Spray Street, Southwest. At several of these meetings and at the last council meeting, I heard the phrase come up, "We don't have a strong mayor," or "considering a strong mayor." This would be the group, and I hope this group doesn't consider that being a policy that they're being pushed for, because I understand that you are appointed by your council who's sitting at this chamber. If that's what they're considering as a strong advantage to the city, I'm just kind of speaking out now before we get to that point, because it came up twice at city council, and then I've heard it several times here. I'm personally am against that, so I'm addressing it now so we don't make a mistake later. Thank you.
Yes.
I didn't hear the first word he said. I mean, I heard some of the words you said, but the first part, what was it at the city council? I apologize, I didn't hear that.
At the last council meeting, a couple of the council started talking back and forth that we don't have a strong mayor system, or we don't have a strong mayor.
Gotcha. Thank
So
you. Thank you.
trying to make sure we don't start leaning towards a strong mayor government within the city of Palm Bay. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question
Certainly.
for Mr. Batten? Mr. Batten, you know the history of the city. Has there ever been a mayor that had the qualifications to be the city manager or run the city?
By Bill Batten opinion, no, because it's a different mindset and a different skill set to manage a city as to govern a city. There's different mindsets.
Thank you.
Great point. All righty, unfinished business.
Is there any other public comments?
Any other public comments? Thank you, sir. Okay. Any unfinished business review and discussion of city charter citizenship qualification for charter officers by Commissioner Kaufhold? Kaufhold. You're getting better. It's only taken me 10 years.
You know, he has an open.
I'm sorry. Thank you, sir. Again, I appreciate that. Before we go to unfinished business reports, list of approved city charter amendments to date, informational.
Yeah, I started including that in the packet, just so the members and the public are aware of everything that has been approved by the commission so far.
And that's located at the end of the packet that you gave us, correct?
No, it's actually in the beginning, right after the adoption of minutes.
Okay. Just as a question, any other reports? Anything else that you needed to share on that?
No.
Anybody have any comments on that? Okay. On this unfinished old business, review and discussion of city charter, that was under which section?
Are you referring to the proposed amendments by Ms. Kaufhold?
No, it says unfinished and old business.
Yes, that's from the last meeting.
Yeah.
Where Commissioner Kaufhold wanted to include the qualified citizen for each charter member.
And what section would that be under?
That is under section, for the city clerk is 3.07, for the city attorney it's 3.11, and for the city manager it's 4.01.
Okay, and Ms. Kaufhold?
So these amendments to these sections were reviewed by city attorney, and we just wanted to make them standard for each section so that basically we have appointed positions must be a citizen of the United States, a qualified citizen of the United States, and that was what I wanted that to be consistent in all three of these. The only difference is the city attorney, where the city attorney shall be a practicing attorney with at least 5 years of experience in practice in the courts in the state of Florida.
Could you give us a reference number, please, so we can kind of follow?
References section 3.11, city attorney. It's on page 1 of 2 in old business under my revisions in the packet that we have.
Repeat that one more time. Page what?
Page 1 of 2 for behind my name. But it's almost the last part of the packet, right?
Yeah, it's kind of in the middle.
Okay. It's before Commissioner Miller's proposed revisions. Should be in here. Right? This is the one I printed off. Yeah, this is the one I printed. I didn't look at what she handed out.
Okay.
I'll get one. You want this? Okay.
Okay, in reference to city attorney, you said what?
Yeah, the only difference between the three is that the city attorney be at least 5 years of experience in practice in the courts in the state of Florida.
That's already here.
Okay, right, but he's wanting to know what is being, this is a part of old business. Because
Yes.
what we did is we delayed this so that you could look at it.
And you did.
And you did. And this is what's coming back to the group.
Can I assume that we need to attack this one at a time, each section at a time?
That is up to the commission. You can do one motion. It'll still be part of the amendment process.
Okay. And so proposal is then, could you repeat it one more time for the,
Okay, the proposal is for each of these sections, 3.07, 3.11, and I think it's 401, 4.01, city manager, that you want me to say the language for each one of them? Or-
no, just, yes, please do.
Okay, the language, I don't know, why is Matt's different? Looks different. Okay, it looks the same for all of them. So for each section, it says, city clerk, or the city attorney, or the city manager must be a qualified citizen of the United States of America and a legal citizen of the United States of America by birth, or has completed the naturalization process and received a United States certificate of naturalization. The city of Palm Bay and its electorate must be able to have full trust and confidence in the city clerk, attorney, manager in its employment. Okay?
Okay.
So that applies to each one of them. The only difference is in section 3.112 qualifications. 3.112A, the city attorney must be a practicing attorney with at least 5 years of experience and practices in the courts of the state of Florida. So after the commission looked at all this, we sent it over to the attorney, she sent it back, and now we're ready for this.
Okay. And any discussion? Commissioner Gum?
Thank you, Thomas Gahn. The proposed citizenship requirements may violate federal employment law, specifically the Immigration and Nationality Act under Title 8 of the United States Code, specifically Section 1324B. It is actually illegal to discriminate against candidates based on their citizenship status. Thank you.
And that's found where?
But they're not candidates. They're appointed positions in the city government.
We also have a naturalized.
I'm just asking the city
okay.
attorney for further clarification.
That's why we discussed they want it in here, but you have to be able to legally work. You can be legally work because you're a U.S. citizen or that you're naturalized. Essentially what we're saying, what HR already does as far as make sure people have the legal right to work before they hold any position, whether it's city manager, city attorney, or any of the assistant city attorney's position.
But the right to work goes beyond those bounds in the United States, right? I mean, you can have a green card, military people get married overseas and bring their spouse back and they're instantly able to work. I mean, there are other considerations.
Certainly, if they're legally allowed to work, and which is what we discussed is why, or if this is actually needed, then they certainly can work. I mean, we're not going to be able to stop anybody who under federal law can actually hold the position or can work. Because anything that we have is, of course, inferior to what federal law. We can't violate federal law in order to enforce a city charter provision. It's kind of the same discussion we had before about whether we needed anything for Sharia law, because to say that you couldn't have it, that you prohibit it, you're risking the federal law because you're singling out a religion. To say that, hey, we're not going to discriminate, we're going to uphold the Constitution and we're not going to implement any law that violates the federal law is the current state of law.
Okay, thank you.
If I may ask a question, just out of curiosity, and I don't know if how much you can go back in your history, but the qualifications for president, is it stated that he must be an American citizen? Natural born?
Yes, we're talking about employees. I mean, this isn't even about the elected officials. You're all just talking about, because we call them charter officers, but they're really I mean, they're upper management, they are just employees. They're all, have to go through and meet the same requirements of any other employee. The only difference is that we're employees that are also have a contract, but we still have to meet the same requirements as, for hire as any other employee.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner
If I may, a couple of things. Number one is that, number one, to require that all attorneys must be a legal citizen by birth or has completed naturalization or received a United States certificate of naturalization. I have to say they're a legal citizen. That combines all of those. Secondly is, Patricia, have we ever had a charter officer that didn't meet these qualifications?
No.
Exactly. So it's, again, it's moot. It's totally unnecessary.
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
The situation that we're in America today requires that we be specific and defined in everything that we do right now. Because to say that Sharia law is a religion when it's not is one of the debates happening. It is not a religion, okay? That is what we're talking about, is being specific about everything that we want to do in the city of Palm Bay. We must say the U.S. Constitution, the Florida Constitution, all these things, and to try and just dismiss it, to say that it's moot, isn't doing a service to the community. We must, in my opinion, make sure that we want those people that are running our city to be Americans, period.
They are.
Fully agree.
Do I have any other comments, or yes, Commissioner O'Neill?
Tyler O'Neill, two things. Off of your comment, sir, we're making amendments for our future, not based off our past history. So especially with the state of our country, with mass immigration, and just the way our country is folding with people trying to come here for better their lives. I'm just trying to make a point here of being specific of there could be new officials wanting to be in the seats that we're in the commissioner seats that are going through the immigration process. So having those guidelines for being an American citizen, regardless if though we've never had that problem before, it's keeping the rails on to make sure we don't run into those issues. Secondly, dialing way back here from this, point A, you talked about having an attorney in place for 5 years with experience and practice in the courts of the state of Florida. Are you also saying that you want them with 5 years of practice in the state of Florida? Or are you asking for a minimum requirement in the state of Florida?
A
practice?
minimum requirement in the state of Florida so that those laws of the state of Florida be adhered to
So 5 years.
specifically.
So 5 years of minimum practice and 5 years of Florida practice.
Oh, no, no.
That's what I'm asking.
Oh, okay, no, 5 years of experience and practice in the courts of Florida.
Okay.
So because I don't want someone coming in from Michigan who has been taken over by Sharia law to come in here and be an attorney for the city. That's my whole idea about these qualifications being very specific. I mean, we have a communist mayor in the state of New York right now. So these are the types of things we really need to be guarding against.
Attorney Smith?
I just want to repeat, the only change that you actually are suggesting is the one as far as the citizenship. The 5 years is already in there. That's currently what we have in the charter, so that's not new. So she isn't actually proposing a change. The city attorney shall be a practicing attorney with at least 5 years experience and practice in the course of the state of Florida is right in the charter right now. So that's not a change.
Oh, because it's highlighted, so I was just wondering. Okay, so that's already there. Okay, so
That's already taken care of.
yeah, that's already done.
I propose an amendment to that, in the case of somebody that wanted to apply for one of these positions, due to increasing amounts of illegal immigration and illegal immigrants applying for these positions, let's say we can't stop them from applying or even getting the job per federal law, what have you. Well, let's say if any fraud or any sort of discrepancies are found, that person be subjected to immediate deportation from our country totally.
I don't think we need to deal with that in as much as if they do violate the law, it's already on the books that they must be deported. But a great, yeah. Yes, Commissioner?
When you talk about looking into the future, I look at this and I see a DOJ investigation far more likely than the scenario playing out that's being presented.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I don't understand. What kind of DOJ?
Please, on the microphone.
For illegal hiring practices, for discrimination.
Well, from my perspective, I think these positions should be elected, which would solve the problem if they're elected and not subject to regular hiring practices.
We need to base our decisions on law, not on feelings. Thank you.
That's not a feeling. That's what I am hoping will happen.
Commissioner Norris, you had a comment?
I just want to add an opinion that if we're at the point where we have to consider non-citizens for positions with the city or the government, we're far beyond where a lot of people think we're at, as far as this country falling apart.
Any further comments or questions? So we have a motion. Do you have a motion? Would someone make the motion, please?
I make a motion to pass her amendment as she said it.
May I have a second?
I'd like to make a motion to pass her motion, or pass her amendment as written.
Do you have a second?
Second.
And do we have any people on the, that need a comment from the audience? Please, it had to be on.
The only thing I'd like to ask is, we allow non-citizens to join our U.S. military, and they take an oath to uphold the Constitution and the same things that I took and Bill and several people in this room have taken. So I'm kind of confused as to why we're requiring our city managers and the attorney and the other one, the city clerk, as to why we have to make sure they're citizens. I mean, I'm just not understanding what the reasoning behind this is. Thank you.
Ruth, would you like to address that?
But are you asking why they should be a citizen to be a city attorney or clerk or city manager?
Versus the armed forces?
The armed forces trains them, and that's what the naturalization certificate would do. Same thing that the military goes through. They become citizens.
Okay. Commissioner Neal?
To answer what you were suggesting too, I think that was a bad example because I've gone to basic training with individuals from other countries who are signing a blank checkbook to Uncle Sam up to their life for citizenship, where someone applying for city manager is not willing to put their life on the line, if so be, then apply for the military and join and gain citizenship like the individuals I honorably serve next to. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor by the sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And all nay?
Nay.
So it passes, how many of us are there?
Roll call.
8? You want to do it? Okay, roll call. I was going to say 6-2, but we'll do a roll call. Or whatever.
Mr. Delgado?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Gom?
Nay.
Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yay.
Ms. Sepp? Aye. Ms. Kaufhold?
Aye.
Mr. Weinberg?
Okay. Passes. How many? Is there 8 of us or 9 of us? 6-2. There's 8 of us. Okay, 6-2. No, it's 6 of us here. Okay. 2. 4, 6, 8, 6-2.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Amen. So back to new business, and so before we continue, and we're going to switch the order just for a minute so that those who are participating can go home sooner. I'd like to suggest that before we continue, before we finalize the city charter review, that we would have from the attorneys the language of how it's going to be proposed as far as the changes that are being made, so that as we hear it, we actually hear how it's stated to a way, if it's presented on the ballot, that it seems like this is good for us before it goes to the city council and before they vote on it. But apparently, Patricia Smith, you would like to, attorney, would you like to say something?
Yes, you all have made a lot of suggestions thus far. And it is likely that all of these suggestions are not going to be accepted by council and placed on the ballot. The ballot statements are not done in-house. I send them out to an attorney who does these all the time to ensure that it is not likely that this will be challenged. So me providing these statements to you all would be me spending part of my budget on things that council may never approve. Or a council could approve with slight changes, which would result in more expenditures. I think it is important because you all are going through all the process. And I know you're all working hard, but it is very much likely because there are only so many things that you can actually ask the public to vote on. I mean, there may be things that they agree with you all on, but if you put too much stuff out on the ballot, what people tend to do is, I know there are a lot of informed people here, they're not going to want to take the time, and if you don't want to take the time, what do? You default to the status quo. You just decide to vote no on all. So they're probably going to have more of a narrower field. And with my budget that I'm very much concerned about, I do try to do the best I can. I think it would be more expedient for you all to make the recommendations. Certainly council will decide. Once council decides, that's when we send it to the attorney to make the ballot statement, do something where, hey, if a challenge can come, I know that I've got an attorney who could defend us. And when those come, they'll be on the agenda. Council has to approve them. And if you all think, well, there's something that we missed, or you think they're confusing, you come out with everybody else, or you send the comments then, because otherwise I'm paying perhaps double. And nobody wants my office to be paying double. I'm sure none of you want that. I certainly don't want that.
If I may clarify something, then, when it's presented, and because I don't remember the process in times past, when it is presented to the city council, is it presented in a way where they can change what is said? Or how it's presented?
If they have any issues, they could tell me. We still go through that same process, because if they have something, I would typically ask them not to adopt a revision that they make on the fly. Because if they have a revision, they let me know, and then I run that revision back through the attorney, because we always want to make sure whatever that we actually have, we've got something that's defensible.
But they are given a time to where they can review the verbiage and make any suggestions, or if they don't like the way it's presented and give their opinion, to send it back. They do have that opportunity.
Yes, typically what happens if somebody has questions about it, they will typically contact, the individual council members may contact me and let me know that, hey, I have something. So in the hopes that they tell me then, I can run it by the legal attorney so that it could happen at that council meeting rather than but certainly if it happened at the council meeting, I would ask them to delay to the extent that we have time, which is typically why if they had anything, they typically would tell me individually. But if it happened at the dais, we would actually try to get them to defer, or worst case, maybe we were time pressed, have them maybe skip that item and me run and try to get my attorney. But I would want the attorney to have reviewed and have no issue that the language meets the law and it's not going to violate any of the things that he's recently seen in cases or any defense of any other referendums.
Thank you. Yes,
If I may clarify,
Mr. Wembeck.
you or one of these members that you designate?
Bill, please.
Oh, thank you. Either you or a commissioner that you designate will present it to the city council exactly as it's approved by this board. Okay? Then the city council, if they approve any of them to pass on to the election, then it would go to an outside attorney who would determine the language as it's put on the ballot.
That's what I understood.
But you will, or someone you designate, will present it to the county, to the city council exactly as it's approved here.
Okay. The changes we have made, have you been able to go through it to make sure that the way we're stating it is clear or not? Have we done that, or do we do that?
Well, I make some suggestions, some of which you all may heed or may not heed, and it goes forward. I certainly, at the end, if you want me to, because I think
if
it
I
may
can
come
say
to
this,
a point where you all have to prioritize these. Depending on how many that you have. I'm sure every recommendation you have, you want council to adopt, but it may be some where you're like, hey, council, we want you to do all of these. But if you decided that you only wanted 4 things on the ballot, these are the 4 things we think are the most important.
if I may clarify then, this is going to be a legal document. As a legal document, you're talking to people who don't have the legalese language. And so we are attempting to stipulate our thoughts, but in a way that may or may not be in legal format. And so what we're trying to do is, if we're going to present this, or what I would like to do, if I'm going to present this to the city council, that it be in the form that what we've discussed and the way we've discussed it is correct in its presentation, and that we're not talking gibberish. Not that, quote unquote, it needs to be presented as it's going to be presented to the public, where you have to hire it out. I'm asking if we can review what we've said and make sure that it is clear in its understanding as you view it as a legal representative.
Okay.
Do we need to pass a vote here to have you look that over? Okay.
I understand.
That's what I would like. And that if you see something that, you know, this isn't clear, I'm reading it and even I don't understand it, then that's probably a clear sign that we didn't express it correctly and we need to revise the way we stated it. I saw a hand on this side of Commissioner Sepp.
I'd like to make a suggestion. Historically, we've had these meetings, then the council takes it, and there's no exchange as to what our thoughts were in that process. So I think having a workshop with the council present so they can review what we've come up with, and we can help them understand why it's important, or in our, in the work that we've done, why we've come to these conclusions. They do workshops, and I think this is an important one.
I think we could offer that to the city council if they would so choose to do so. Yeah. I'm sure we can't vote on that. Commissioner O'Neill.
Before moving, not a bad idea, but moving forward, will that in any way go against Sunshine Law?
No, you can have a joint workshop. The joint workshop would have to be in the sunshine. You're right. But as long as we had the workshop between the two of you all and it was publicly noticed, and it would be fine.
Commissioner Miller.
Just a quick question. So we have about 4 of these meetings left, I think, on our schedule. We only have a couple of sections left to go. Obviously, this is the first time serving on this. Phil might be able, or some of the other commissioners may be able to share. Are the last couple of meetings us going back and reviewing all of the changes and validating the wording? Or when we get done with this, we're just done and we're ready to submit? Is there further discussion?
That would be up to the commission,
Okay.
however you want to proceed forward.
Okay.
Commissioner,
That being said, I had gone back and reviewed section 401, and I would request that we add that to the next agenda for the next meeting. I have already submitted my changes to the clerk. That's not in this packet, but it was based on that I didn't get a chance to look at it, so I did look at it extensively, so I would request that we add it to the agenda for next meeting.
we certainly can.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving right along. Great. And today we have a special speaker, and unfortunately, the name escapes me, and I apologize. And Angelica.
Very close. Good evening. My name is Angelica Collins. I'm the Assistant Finance Director for the City of Palm Bay. My primary job is to oversee the city's budget development and determining the tax rate for the city that generates funding to go ahead and pay for the services that we frequently talk about. Sure.
Mr. Chair, I have a point of order. May I make a statement?
Commissioner, go ahead.
The city charter is the covenant between the voters and its elected officials. And the elected officials and the charter officers all take an oath to uphold the charter. The charter is written. Currently, the charter contains a 3% cap. For any staff, elected official, or anybody to speak contrary to the 3% cap is speaking contrary to the charter and goes against their oath of office. I would ask that we table this item for future consideration with that in mind.
I need some attorney help, please. If we can go with the attorney first.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Certainly, you all, the point of you all being here, and which is not just, the charter. A lot of it was driven by this specific provision in which council wanted to reconsider, at least one of the council members that brought this. And a person, even an employee of the city, saying that there should be changes, whether it's the charter or ordinance, I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. You may not agree with, but if we see something that needs to be changed, it is our job to change or give you information for you to determine whether you or council, whether it's change to be made. I don't think there's any provision that can say that once something is adopted, you can't say anything. Well, not that I think we can't have anything that says you can't suggest anything or you can't do anything that's contrary. Otherwise, there would never be any changes or amendments. You see something and it would be stuck because nobody could say anything. I mean, certainly we
This
can't.
gets into, you
We
can
can't
advocate.
say anything about overthrowing the government. I mean, we do make those type of pledges, but the fidelity to the charter is not saying that the charter can't be changed.
Right, but then you get into the advocacy versus education. You can educate, but you can't advocate. So it's fine to lay out data points and review those things, but it's not okay to advocate for change.
You can't use public resources to advocate for a change for an item that's on the referendum. We actually haven't gotten there, so there is debate about when that occurs. But it's clear that once council decides that this is going to be put out for voters, that there could be no governmental resources to advocate for change. I will say at this point, we don't know that the assistant director is advocating for anything or educating because we haven't really given her a chance to do much other than say her name.
Well, let me ask one more question along these lines. If the 3% cap was challenged in court as being illegal, wouldn't the city have to divest or use all of its resources available to defend a 3% cap?
the city would decide, based upon the allegations in the complaint, whether there was a legally viable way in which to defend what was being challenged.
Commissioner Ruth, you had your hand up?
Going back to last meeting, this group, and I think it's still in the minutes, said that anything that comes before must be given to us in the packet for us to review. So since this was not, can we delay it until next meeting?
Inasmuch as we had stipulated in the format that we were supposed to do it, that if there's going to be an offer of changing anything on this docket, that we would present it before the actual speaking of it, so that we can look it over,
Right.
understand it, understand where we're going with this, if we were going to address it. That is correct.
Okay. Because I wouldn't be able to ask questions, or at least intelligent questions, on the fly,
Right.
so.
I haven't completely gone through this because it actually was similar to what you presented before council. It was my understanding that that was as far as language. You all didn't want, people state in language that you hadn't seen. I don't believe that this presentation is actually to propose a specific language for the charter.
That is correct. I'm going to say this. What is she presenting? What Angelica is presenting is not a request. It's not a request to change. You're just giving us information?
That's correct. So the presentation is essentially a compilation, a summary of all the presentations I've given to City Council. I've been doing this for 10 years. It's similar slides from our most recent budget workshop. I include the language that's actually in the charter now and kind of talk how I come up with the computations that I present. So it's an education on understanding what the 3% cap does to revenues that come in.
Okay.
So
So
that
you-
way, there's an understanding of the math behind the
Okay,
information.
so you're not presenting any position, whether to change it or not, you are just giving us information.
That is my job for the past 10 years, and I've been doing this with City Council multiple times a year. I don't advocate for or against it. The only thing that I can do is provide you with data and information on current, historical, and projections on what the city sees in the future.
Okay, we will accept the information, however, we're not accepting, other than what's already been presented for proposed changes, that's what we will be discussing.
There's a motion on the table, or on the floor to table the item.
Was there a second? I don't think there was a motion.
You made the point of order.
Point of order.
Ask for it to be tabled. So if I need to make that in the form of a motion.
You can make, you can, but again, we're not asking, she's not presenting something to change something, she's just informing us how it works,
I'm
for
fine with that.
information's sake.
I'm fine with that, it's just that I'd ask for it to be tabled, and that's still
Okay.
on the table.
Do we have a second?
It dies for lack of second. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Weinberg.
Essentially, it's just as Patricia provides expert opinions on the law, Therese Jones, as city clerk, provides expert opinion on procedure. Angelica, who is an expert in budget, and she's here just to clarify, to explain what the 3% cap was, which is one of the discussion items on the agenda. And any information that we can get to help us make any decisions, that's great.
I totally agree with you, I just didn't want to get into advocacy, and I wanted to keep it at education.
She's not here to advocate, she's here to inform.
Welcome, and please feel free to share.
Thank you. What a welcome. I may have to take tomorrow off. Again, my name is Angelica Collins. I'm the Assistant Finance Director with the City of Palm Bay. Been with Palm Bay now coming up on my 10-year anniversary. And this is really my realm of what I do day to day. I've done a Charter Review Commission presentation before. It was 4 years ago, so thank you, Mr. Weinberg, for asking me to come back. I love talking about this. I love my job. And for me, it's an education, educating people about not necessarily their property taxes, that comes from our property appraiser's office, but how we take these numbers and how we come up with the revenue that's generated in the city. There is a lot of math behind that. And sometimes I do feel when individuals see the 3% cap, I just want to allow them to relate how that translates into property bills versus what the revenue that's generated in the city, what that kind of looks like. Also, for statutory requirements, there's always all these rates that you hear, 6.7, 6.7339, and a rollback rate, and a 3% cap rate. And so there's a lot of numbers that have to be thrown out there per statutory requirements. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what those numbers are, what they mean in certain environments, so that way maybe when we do have these budget workshops, that we're actually having one next week on Tuesday, you're welcome to come, that you kind of have that knowledge and understand on what this number does over here versus over here versus over here. So that way you can maybe get a high-level understanding when you hear all these budget workshops that we kind of have. So for the topic of discussion, I have sort of laid it out to where we'll first talk about like what the cap actually is and then what it looks like. I'm going to give you some historical and statistical data and then just some calculation methods. In our budget workshops, I always provide a 20-year history of our gross taxable value, how those operating millages rate work, and that type of revenue that's generated. We'll talk about the rollback rate, what it is, what it means, and some of the challenges these rollback rates sort of bring to municipalities, and maybe some of the benefits as well, right? And then we have our tax bill millage rate slide. I like to include that so we can kind of see when you're looking at the whole tax bill. I get a lot of calls from our taxpayers in the city, and they say, well, you know, this is my tax bill, but we kind of break it down into, you don't just pay the City of Palm Bay. There's a lot of other taxing authorities in the city that sort of generate revenue from your bill. And then we'll kind of talk about some other slides that I like to include visuals on revenue that's generated, how that impacts those departments within the general fund. So we'll go to slide 3. So I want to just talk about our 3% cap and really what our charter says. So this is specifically in the charter, so this is sort of that your assignment to review and talk about. Our city charter was voted on in the November 2016 election, so it's about 10 years ago, which was in fiscal year 2017, and then it became effective in 2018. So you always have to remember that it is being voted on, but then there's always that lag year until the tax bills are actually picked up and we go through that certification process. So annually, my office goes through what we call our trim process. So between the month of July and the month of September is where we work with the property appraiser, Department of Revenue, and our tax collectors. And there's all these forms that we have to file and all these limits we have to sort of abide by, and that is our trim process. So you always have to remember, as soon as it's on that tax bill, on your voter registration card in our residence, and I was a vote on that, it's still going to not take effect for that whole another year, just because it has to get onto that taxation cycle. So within the charter, it does say that it's an increase over the budgeted ad valorem revenue from the previous fiscal year by no more than 3%. So What I essentially do, we're getting ready to prepare for fiscal year '27, which is effective October 1 of this year. So that's our life cycle for our fiscal year. So I look at what was budgeted for '26 for our ad valorem taxes, and then that's where you start with a calculation on that 3% cap. The 3% cap may be imposed an ad valorem tax for municipal purposes.
Excuse me, Angelica, if you can
Sure.
tell us on which one you're at so I can follow you.
I'm on slide 3.
Slide 3.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then at subsection C, it says council may impose an ad valorem tax for municipal purposes at a rate which exceeds the limitations in paragraph B if a supermajority of the city council concurs in finding that such an excess is necessary because of an emergency or critical need. So your 3% cap is in place, and if 4 out of 5 of our council members vote to exceed that cap, then that is the law within our city charter. So in order to exceed the cap rate, which we determine in the month of July, 4 out of our 5 members have to vote on that, and it should be for the emergency or critical need. So at that point, I work with our city attorney's office. We have a resolution that actually ties to exceeding that cap that officially gets filed within the city as well. And within that resolution, we itemize the reasoning for exceeding that cap. So that difference in revenue we generate, I know for this year, we exceeded that cap, is dedicated to vehicle purchases, fire engines, things like that. So
Was that already passed by the,
Yes, so we passed our rate, we passed it in the month of September, and then it becomes effective October 1.
and the vote was,
I believe the vote was 4-1. I would have to go back and pull it, but we did have, it was 4-1, yes. Subsection D, sure.
yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
It's
Vice Chair.
actually a 3% plus growth. And what does the growth make up as far as the percentage of the budget year after year?
So it's actually a 3%. Your new construction valuations are exempt from the 3% cap in the first calendar year. And I'll talk about that calculation in a little bit. So initially, when we do the 3% cap, it is based on current ad valorem taxation plus that 3%. So I'll talk a little bit about new construction valuations in a little bit. Sure.
When you guys go into the emergency or critical need portion, is there a set cap in there of how much further you're allowed to go up?
So the state actually has a maximum set rate that can be adopted. As long as you do not go over that, it is up to council to choose that limit. So the state essentially already, we come into the fiscal year already at a state cap. So the Department of Revenue caps how high we can go, how high you can actually increase a rate. But that is a state statutory limit that they impose based on the current year that we're essentially in. So they're saying this current year, you've adopted this rate, which was this much above your rollback rate. So in the future year, you cannot raise your taxes higher than this rate, essentially.
Okay.
If council chooses to increase the rate from the current year, which in the past 10 years I've been here, that they have not, that is up to them as long as they don't go over the statutory limit that the state has set for our municipality. So they couldn't necessarily come in and say, we are raising the rate by 5 millage points because they're statutorily not allowed to do that. Subsection D actually talks about that exclusion of that revenue. So exclude from the anticipated revenues are all revenue changes from the following kinds of property not appearing on the previous year's tax roll. So you have new constructions, addition or demolitions in whole or in part of the existing construction, and changes in the values of improvement. So within the calendar year, anytime anyone does any new constructions or any kind of changes to whether it's private property or commercial property that changes the value of your home, that is considered new construction. And that valuation we receive from the property appraiser separately. So it's a separate, essentially, notation on the form we receive. And this amount is excluded from the 3% cap for the first year. The following year, when we come back, that is then subjected to the 3% cap. So as I go into my calculations, I'll show you that we first determine the 3% cap rate based on anything that's been on the tax roll for more than a year. Then we ensure that initially we stay in line with that rate. And then we take that rate and apply it to the new taxable value, and that is additional revenue that is added to the 3% cap revenue that comes in. Therefore, in the future year, you're essentially increasing more than 3% in revenue from the previous year, but because within the charter it states that new construction is exempt, right? So that's how the calculations sometimes work. So sometimes I don't encourage individuals to look at, hey, this year, this is how much you took in revenue, and a 3% increase, but you're taking in much more, but you said you adopted the cap. The reason is because part of that additional revenue is that new construction. Slide 4, something that I include in most of my presentations when we go to council workshops. So this is that 10-year history of what our rates within the city have looked like. So like I said, is 2017, 2018, that first year, we did not have a 3% cap. That is when the voting happened and you have that lag year. But starting in 2018, you see those 3 different colored lines. So essentially your gray line is the rates that have been adopted historically for 10 years. The yellow line is the 3% cap rate. So as you see, whenever those 2 lines meet together, we essentially adopted our cap. And then the orange line is the rollback rate. And specifically in your packet, it does explain what the rollback rate is in a little bit, so I'll go over that as well. Historically, the 3% cap rate has always been above the rollback. However, this year is the first year that we're in currently where the rollback rate is higher than the cap rate. So you're essentially, your cap is lower than what your current allowable rate is to bring it. The reason why that happened is because we used to have the Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA. And the CRA, while within the city, did not have its own tax rate. So essentially what happens is that we tax the whole city of Palm Bay, city limits, and then that portion is set aside for the CRA. That's part of how the Community Redevelopment Agency works. Community Redevelopment Agency also receives revenue from the county, so that's how these development agencies work. This particular redevelopment agency sunsetted, meaning that it is no longer a legal entity. So now that portion that used to be, that we had set aside for that taxation area where that revenue can only be used in that sort of diameter of that city, we can no longer set that aside, and now everything is being taxed. So that this year is the first year that that tax roll came off. So now we're taxing everything, and everything is under the 3% cap essentially. So that is why that shift happened.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. On slide 4, you just show the millage rate and how it's decreased and decreased over time. Mm-hmm. What's missing is the reciprocal number of how much property values have increased.
Yes.
And the total revenue of the city over the years.
Okay, I have some additional slides
Okay.
we'll go through. So
Thank you.
yes, okay. All right. So again, in slide 5, it's just the wording sort of explained a little bit differently. So what is the 3% cap? So it's just like we covered in the charter slide. The operating millage was, that's approved in September, effective the following fiscal year, is capped to a set rate that will not generate more than a 3% revenue increase from the previous fiscal year budgeted amount, excluding new taxable value in construction added to the most recent tax roll. So example, when we prepared the fiscal year 26 cap is based on fiscal year 25 budgeted revenue. So how is the 3% cap operating rate and revenue calculated? We set the millage allowable revenue without new taxable values in construction. So again, we do simple math. We look at what we budgeted this year. We do 3% of that. So that's already set aside. That is your 3% revenue that you're bringing in. We determine the operating millage rate, then when applied against the current year adjusted taxable value at a 96% collection rate, and it generates future revenue just below the maximum allowable amount identified in step 1. So essentially what I do is I get our property valuations from our property appraiser. We get some early estimates in May, end of May usually, and then by July 1st, they are required to supply us with our essential taxable value. So please know, I do not know individual units. I don't know property, private versus commercial. I get a lump sum. I know the lump sum valuation for the city of Palm Bay as a whole. So then I plug those in, and then I look at the rate and look at before new taxable value, if we were to go ahead and apply that rate against the existing taxable value on the books, if it essentially generates revenue below that 3% cap amount, right? So that's what I start with, is the values that they receive. So that does include the valuations of the homes. So as your property values increase, right, that taxable value will come down because you're taxing more homes, right? So that's sort of the idea behind it, is that the rate will decrease because you're capping how much you're bringing in, but your growth is higher than that 3%, so naturally your rate will decline, right? Same as the opposite. If home values lower and you're not taxing as many people, if growth starts slowing down, that rate will either decline slower or, not that I've seen it since I've been here, but there is a possibility that the tax rate increases in order to drive up the revenue that comes in. That is sort of all the parts that are in play when you're talking about this. The incoming growth, property valuations, commercial, great to have commercial on the books, but again, I only see one lump sum. So there's a whole lot that goes on behind the scenes. So that's the first step, essentially, in just figuring out what is that rate, right? So we come up with this rate. It goes out 4 decimals, and I will tell you, just changing that last decimal by one number, you're over or under, right? So it does go out 4 decimals. Then we go ahead and apply that operating millage rate to the new taxable value, because remember, the first year it's exempt, and whatever revenue you're generating off that, you add to your initial, right? So hypothetically, if you had no new revenue coming in, if there's no growth, we go in the year the same as we have before, right? You will not generate any additional revenue just because you don't have that new revenue as a buffer to add. You're essentially just calculating 3%. That is the revenue you're bringing in because you have no additional value to add. I do make a note that we always budget at a 96% collection, which means we never anticipate 100% of our property value revenue to come in. The state of Florida requires 95% collection, so 96 is pretty good. I've seen other cities that budget at 98% collection, but just know that the higher you budget, if you don't get all of those funds in by individuals, some don't pay their property taxes, then there is that loss in revenue. So you're better off is projecting at a little bit of a lower rate. All right, so slide 6 and slide 7, that's sort of where your math comes in, right? So this is essentially putting out the data for the last 5 years of what we just talked about, is looking at rates, what are we bringing in, what are we adding together, and what amount are we budgeting for our anticipated revenue coming in. There's no projections for 27. 27 data will not come out until the late May. Therefore, there would be no value for me to put any projections. So this is all published. These are all known. This is all known information that we've sort of distributed in the last 5 years. So I'll give you 5-year history. I like doing that so you can kind of see the math. In the last 5 years, we have adopted the cap 3 times and exceeded it twice. So you can kind of already see from the math on how that impacts the revenue coming in as a whole. I always highlight fiscal year 26 just because that's the year that we're in. So we can start with that and then kind of compare it to 25 so you can see the difference. So for 26, our 3% cap rate was set at 6.3658. And as you know, this year we did exceed the cap and they adopted a rate of 6.7, still a reduction from 25. So they reduced the rate but set it at 6.7, which it did exceed the cap. So did we stay within the cap? No, this year we did not. So based on that, that rate of that 6.7, our 3% maximum allowable revenue for the general fund, excluding new construction, so let's look at just not any new construction, is the $59.5 million. So essentially, we're taking 25 data, calculating 3%. This is what we're coming up with. So then, our general fund portion of the adopted millage rate, again, excluding new construction, right, is the $62.7 million, which means because we exceeded that rate, that difference over or under the 3% cap rate is $3.1 million. So that $3.1 million is the additional revenue generated from exceeding the cap. If you compare that to fiscal year 25 and you see how it has a negative $721, that's because we stayed at the cap. You're never going to have the break-even number because if I would have even gone down or up by one decimal point, as soon as it goes $1 or over, you're exceeding the cap. So usually you're always a little bit under. So it's actually a loss of $721. But that's the math we're talking about. So as you compare it to 25, in 25, the cap was 6.7339. We adopted the cap, which means that our general fund adopted millage rate, excluding the new construction, was set at that $53.18 million. So that's that 3% increase from the previous year. So then if we move below that grade line, right? So we're going to go ahead and for fiscal year 26, carry down that $62.7 million. So again, that's the projected revenue. Oh, yes, ma'am?
Okay, so it says added new construction excluded from 3% cap on year one. Year one meaning all the way back to 2017?
No, so the new construction valuations, when I do my initial calculations, I cannot include, right? So when I receive the notice from the property appraiser, I receive, we're on 6. So when I receive the notice from the property appraiser's office, I receive not just a lump sum saying, these are your valuations. I receive existing valuations that are older than 1 year, And then I receive new construction that was added to the tax roll this previous calendar year. That portion is deducted from the total valuations in order to do the 3% cap. So when I do the calculations here, I have to separate them. These are not valuations, this is revenue coming in.
Right, but the year one is confusing me, just all over the place.
Okay,
Because I.
Okay,
it's
so-
right- It's right here.
yes, because that's added to it. Okay. Anything above the gray line, right? I received the taxable value from the property appraiser. Let's hypothetically say it is 9 million of old values, anything that's a year older, $1 million of new taxable value for a total of 10 million. Okay, so that's the first step. I have to take those valuations and determine a rate that, when applied, does not exceed 3% revenue increase from the previous fiscal year, right? So we have our taxable values. We don't have a rate, that's the X that I have to find in order to not increase the Y more than 3%. It's the formula.
I get that part.
Right.
I know.
The taxable
Okay,
value
What I don't get,
can't look at the 10 million. The taxable value is only the 9 million.
I think
year one to
The
me
year
is
one-
2017.
the year one is the first
No.
year of the new construction. You have the new construction,
building
that
itself.
first year, it's not included in the 3%
No,
cap. And then that second year is going to be part.
She's,
Is that the year one?
every fiscal year is its own year. 2017 is done. You're asking about the rate from 2017 when it was adopted, correct?
Right, because that's
That's-
what the first year is in my mind.
Okay.
So you're saying first construction, meaning if a house is built, that first year, all that's not included in here.
Correct. So that house could have been built in 2024. So in 2024, that valuation is not under a 3% cap limit. In 2025, the valuation of the home now is under a 3% limit.
Okay, I get that.
Right.
Yes,
So-
'cause
Yes.
that just threw me right off.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm
Vice
reading
Chair.
this right. So over 5 years, we've collected $37.9 million in year one, and in year five, we went to $66.85 million. That's a 55% tax increase while still staying within the 3% tax rate 3 out of the 5 years. Is that correct?
That's correct. And if you go to slide 11. So slide 11 provides you with a 10-year taxable value history where it shows you your current year adjusted taxable value. So that's anything over a year. And the second column is your new taxable value. So as you see, in 2017, your new taxable value was $45 million. And in 2025, your new taxable value was $618 million. And remember, that portion is not subjected to the 3% cap. That is where your revenue is coming from. And that's sort of the picture that I'm trying to show, is that the 3% cap, as long as your new revenue continues at this rate and continues to increase, that is where your true general fund revenue, even and under a cap, is generated. As soon as your new growth slows, you will see your general fund revenue start growing less or declining because you don't have the new revenue to reap that benefit from that first year, right? So that's the mindset you have to be in, is if you continuously add that new growth, whether it's private or commercial
Right.
or anything like that, because that's excluded from that limitation, that is where the city is generating most of its revenue, even under the cap. The following year, all of this amount is subjected to the cap.
Right.
And that's where you see the growth happen. So between 2017, right, while yes, you have 45 million in new taxable value, but then as you go into 24 and 25, it nearly hits 700 million, right? And so that's sort of what I try to kind of explain, is that, yes, it's great for the first year, but as soon as you hit that second year of being on a tax roll, it will continuously be hit by that limitation. So that's why when I do the math, I always try to explain, let's determine your 3% cap rate first. Anything that's old on the tax roll, it's been on there for over a year, right? It's existing, and that's why it's broken out when the property appraisers send that to us. Then let's determine that first. And then we apply that rate to the new revenue, and that's essentially the additional that you can add to what you're generating under the cap. So yes, you will have an increase in revenue.
55%.
You have an increase in revenue, but the reaping of the benefit occurs from the new taxable value that's added to the tax roll, right? So that's why I talk in the revenue quite a bit that yes, you have an increase in that 55%, but it is in the revenue that's generated based largely on the new construction valuation that's been added to the books. Does that help?
I helped write it. I helped write the 3% cap. I will always be opposed to repealing it.
I put the numbers out there, but when the general fund, when you talk about the revenue, it is almost like it's stating, I compare it to like a widget, right? So you have a widget that is $1, right? And a company sells widgets to homeowners in a particular city, and each home and each commercial property gets one widget that's worth $1, right? So you go from year to year, and all of a sudden you have an influx of properties coming in. You're still selling the widget for $1, but your revenue will double or triple because of how many homes that you're selling widgets to, but the widget is still $1. And yes, there are increases and decreases in your property taxes, even if we decrease the rate or increase the rate, because your property valuations vary. And the property valuations are determined by the property appraiser. So there is a link. So yes, I can't say that your property values will stay the same every year, but the idea is the math is still the same, that the more people you are taxing, whether it's businesses, personal properties, your revenue will increase regardless of what you do with the rate, just because you are taxing more property owners in the city. So the more you grow, the more homeowners and commercial property comes into the city to tax, your revenue will increase.
I understand all the numbers. The point of the 3% cap was to keep people in their homes, not tax them out of their homes.
Yeah, Commissioner Sepp had a question.
Yeah, I'm curious, how are new construction rentals assessed to mitigate the tax burdens on single-family home owners? and the city resources that they take up.
So we don't assess the valuations, the property appraiser's office does
So the
that.
city has no say in how those developments are going to be taxed?
No.
I was gonna-
It is a,
I was gonna say the similar.
so the only influence we have is the rate that we place on the tax roll. The rate itself is applied to the property valuations of that property. How the property is valued is done by the property appraiser's office for the county.
I think that's unfair to property owners, but aside from that, you can have an apartment that has 6 people or 1 person. We have houses that have 1 person or an entire family. And this whole process of assessment, to me, is totally unfair. There will be things on the ballot that want to get rid of property taxes. Are you taking that into consideration and looking at ways to?
Yeah, so our city, we're in the process of preparation for our new budget year, and we are looking at ways to cut our revenue intake and how each department can actually look at cutting various expenses.
That's similar to what I was going to ask. If I-
One second, please. Commissioner Miller wanted to say something first.
I'm okay to yield for him to follow up on what Eileen was saying.
Okay.
And then I'll come back.
Go right
I'm just
ahead.
going to ask if you said earlier, I think you'd mentioned you had no way to differentiate between residential or commercial whatsoever. There's no differentiation?
So currently, how the properties are taxed in the state of Florida is they're all taxed at the same rate.
It's a flat rate. And that's not a city thing, that's a state.
That's a statutory requirement. So we abide by statutory law for the Department of Revenue, and that is how you apply that tax rate.
Yeah, I'm with Eileen. I just, or Mrs. Sapp, I don't see how a single-family home could be taxed whatsoever. I don't think that, a residence should be taxed at all, if you make under a certain amount.
Let's remind ourselves, we're here to attack the charter, not what they're doing up at the state, and that the questions should be for understanding's sake, not for agreeing, disagreeing, how they're doing it. This is how they're doing it. We're getting information, lest we spend all our time voicing on something that we really don't have any power to change. If they're going to change it, they'll change it at the state level, and then we'll go through it from that point.
We do have a budget workshop next Tuesday on the 20th at 6 p.m. with City Council. You're more than welcome to attend.
Wonderful.
Well, I think that asking questions is more than pertinent. I mean, if we're trying to figure out what direction we're going,
Yeah.
and what's happening.
The questions are good. Questions are good. I'm just saying, let's not attack whether they're going to eliminate property taxes or not, because at this point in time, it's irrelevant. Pastor Miller first.
Sure, I just want to make sure I understood. So if I look at the 2025 number of 53 million, 3% maximum allowable, 3% on that would be like $54 million or 54.7 million. So it goes up to 59, which is about a 12% increase. So that's the 3% cap plus all the new construction that's over 1 year old. And so that's how it bridges the gap and gets to 12%. All right, I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying. Thank you.
Okay, back over here to Commissioner Sett.
I have a question for the attorney. As a home rule municipality, do we have no ability to weigh in on how these things are calculated?
No, because that's preempted to the property appraiser.
Well, my question would be, if it's a state level thing, then why are we even talking about it here? If we have enough?
That's the point I'm trying to, we're using all this time, it's going on, we're not attacking what we're here to attack. It'd be nice just to go ahead and finish what you have presented here, if we can do it quickly, and let's get on back to business.
Yeah, so just to finish it out, so again, putting that, as you're exceeding the cap for 26, you're reaping in that additional $3.1 million. So that is because the council chose to exceed the cap and adopt at 6.7. And then we go ahead and apply that rate to the new constructible valuations, which would generate an additional $4.1 million totaling out 66.8 million. So as you see, the new construction valuations is always exempt, so that's why we carry that down. On slide 7, yeah, honestly, it's again just the same setup, just displayed a little bit different. Where in fiscal year 26, that additional amount of that 3% cap, that additional revenue you're generating for the year from the previous year is $1.7 million. So again, we started the year's calculation with 57.8, and then we go ahead and calculate 3% of that. So again, if there was no new construction, no new additional evaluations, then the additional revenue for the year would be $1.7 million, more than what you essentially generated from the previous year. But of course, this year we did exceed the cap, so that 3.1 million was added, that was set aside for those critical needs, ending us again with a $66.8 million. So in total, the city is generating $9 million more than the previous year. So it was that initial 57 million that we started with, and then we're bringing an additional 9 between exceeding the cap and that new construction valuations. So when we, sure.
Yes.
Okay, so now the new budget is 66.81 or 851.
Yes, correct,
Okay.
for the general
So
fund.
that would be the new budget that they must stay under, or they were,
That's what was adopted for the year.
that's what
correct.
was adopted, even though they exceeded it? Okay.
Yes.
In that, and I don't know who answers this question of, is there a detail to determine why in any part of it?
What do you mean, why?
So when they adopted it, do they get to tell me, or tell you or somebody recording all this, was it an emergency or a critical need?
Yes, all of that was adopted via resolution in the month of September of last year, and so all of that is public.
Okay.
So because they exceeded the cap by adopting the 6.7, a resolution was drafted outlining specifically what was purchased with the additional $3.1 million.
Okay, got it.
And
Thank
then
you.
everything else is what the operating budget is, which is outlined and detailed in that as well. So everything is allocated already. So then going into fiscal year 26, obviously with that additional 9 million, I just want to sort of highlight all the other increases that we've seen this year that we are anticipating on seeing in the future. So anticipated increases, a large portion of our general fund is our personnel costs. So roughly about 3/4 of the costs in that fund are just for personnel. So we have salary, wages, benefits, pensions, retirement, anything like that. And the fund itself, a little bit more than half is dependent on ad valorem taxation, right? So the fund itself, a little bit more than half of the revenue that's generated in this fund is your taxation property. And then of that fund, 3/4 of it are simply just for our personnel-related costs. Large of that is public safety, and I'll kind of show those numbers in a little bit. Our health insurance costs are estimated up 6.6%. Electrical services throughout the city limits are up 15 to 20%. Contractual requirements that the city has to pay are up 10 to 15%. We have our continued debt service requirements of $7.3 million. We're lucky that that hasn't really increased, so we haven't taken on any new debt in that particular fund. So those are sort of just the increases that we're seeing. So electric increases is citywide. Remember, we do pay for traffic lights, anything like that as well. So that is all included in that as well. Throughout the budget process, we have departments submit what high priority needs are. High priority needs are any increases that are due to new contractual obligations ongoing contractual obligations, and mandated local, state, or federal requirements. These are bills that have to be paid, whether you've been in a contract and you're required to pay it. They are any kind of statutory changes that we now have to include in those expenses. A lot of it is also equipment that has like a debt service date, so just be mindful, like our police officers, they wear their Malabar vests, and those vests are only good for a certain amount of years, and then after that life debt drop date, you're required to replace those. So that's like an example. Of that $3 million of that critical need funding that isn't budgeted but has to be budgeted in addition to what is already budgeted for the following year, $1.6 million is public safety related, which is your fire and police department. The goal focus for our city managers historically has been for road maintenance. Road maintenance funding, the annual goal is $4 million a year. Any type of road maintenance outside of your road bond, which that's a separate situation, is all general fund funded. So again, remember the fund, 50% of that at least is your taxation that we talked about in the previous slides. And our current city manager has also started a fleet replacement plan where we are attempting to set aside a certain amount annually to start building for, to replace our fleet. As you know, our fire and police departments, that is where a lot of that is, between the police vehicles, the fire trucks, and we need to put them on a plan to replace every 5 years, depending on, what type of vehicle it is. And instead of emergency situations where we have to buy them right then and there and we hadn't planned for them, we are working towards building up a reserve to where we're able to continuously retire those vehicles that are no longer sufficient for the job that they're doing. So that was implemented this year, and we're hoping to continue that. On slide 9, you will see our general fund expenditures, as I just spoke about our personnel costs. So this is our payroll and pension impacts. So again, I mentioned about 3/4 of what's spent in that fund is just for personnel. We have 4 pay groups, but really 3 union groups within the general fund. We have our International Association of Firefighters. There's 2 union contracts associated with them, so those are our firefighters. They are required per contractual obligation to receive a 10% annual pay increase. Our Fraternal Order of Police has 3 separate union contracts, our officers' units, sergeant, and lieutenants. And they all receive an adjustment on their base salary, and then they receive a merit increase. The merit increase is usually another 3%. So our officers, for example, get a total of 8 for the year. Our sergeants and lieutenant get a total of 5 because it's 1.9% initially when the fiscal year starts, and then there's a merit of like that 3%.
Question.
Sure.
Does the merit, is that variable based on review?
I am not an expert in that. It is there in their contract that if there is that merit increase, that they are getting the 3%. I'm not an expert on the contract union contract. So, but what's behind the merit evaluation, that would be a question for our human resource department.
Okay, so it comes over from human resources, whether or not they get that.
Well, whatever's stated in the contract. I'm not an expert on the contract. I just know that if they receive the merit increase, they are subjected to that 3% increase.
Okay, thank you.
We have our National Association of Government Employees, so we have our, what we call our NAGE blue and our NAGE white. They just started their contract this year. The other 2, I think we're in the 2nd year, and they're usually 3-year contracts, so the NAGE employees just started their new contract this year, and they are receiving a 3% increase on 10/1, and then another 2% April 1, so roughly about 5%. It compounds a little bit different, but roughly about 5% a year on their salary increases. Our general employees are not our union contracts, so their annual COLA, or cost of living, is adjustable. So for fiscal year '26, it was approved to build in a 5% increase for that group as well, to mirror similar to what the other sort of union contracts are receiving.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just had a quick question. I wasn't here last meeting. Did you guys vote to have a 2-hour limit on the meetings? If so, can I just ask for an overview for a non-politician? Okay, what are we talking about here? Is this an increase on the tax rate that we're talking about maybe doing later? Or what's the pitch? Because I think we have a 2-hour time limit, right? Do you have an overview, like a one-sentence overview for a non-politician, like myself?
So, and Patricia may correct me, but within the city charter, it states that the city cannot tax higher than a 3% unless there's a vote to exceed that cap. And I don't know the direction of the city charter, but it is up to the, of the Charter Commission to adjust the wording on whether to eliminate that cap situation.
Gotcha.
I can let you know, and it's in the presentation, that there's 12 municipalities or taxing authorities in the county, and the county is the 13th. We are the only taxing authority that has a cap. The county has a cap. They have a 3% or CPI, which is actually a little bit different.
I got it. It was a wonderful presentation, too. Thank you.
Yeah.
It really, I can tell you really worked hard on it.
I will say, to my knowledge, we are the only taxing authority outside of the county in the state of Florida that has the cap. So,
Are we wanting, yes, go ahead.
I just have one question. You did mention during the presentation there was a state cap. So if we,
yes, sure.
if we were to put that into a percentage term, how close is that to the 3% cap that
so-
we have today?
So the state cap that I was talking about is actually a limit on the rate that you can increase by. But in your packet too is that there is actually a tax exemption on your home. So if you ever get your property tax bills, you have your standard deductions that you get. But on your property tax bill, there's you have a Save Your Homes tax exemption. If you've never seen it, be honest with you, I started here. Yeah, on a term notice. Okay, yeah. So essentially, what the state has already implemented is when you are taxed on your home, you're not taxed on your market value. So remember, your bill shows you have a market value, and then there's the school exemption. You get $25,000, another $25,000. So there's all these deductions that happen that come up with a bottom line taxable value, right? So you may start out with $200,000 market value, but you're only being taxed on, let's say, $85,000 of that 200, right? Because there's all these deductions.
No, I get that.
So there's a Save Our Homes limit that actually limits your assessed value from increasing more than 3%.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get down to, as you said.
Yeah.
Just, if we decided, okay, let's eliminate the 3% tax cap, then does that create an unlimited tax
No.
increase ability?
No.
And if it doesn't create an unlimited, then what is the limit?
So the
Roughly, is it 5%, 10%?
Yeah, right, so your ultimate limit for all cities or all taxing authorities is 10 mils.
10
right?
mils.
So 10.
Okay.
Okay.
However, it adjusts annually on what our limit is. So for example, they say, City of Palm Bay, you adopted a 6.7 with a 4 out of 5 vote this year. Next year, you can only go up to a 6.89 if you vote 4 out of 5, right? So there's an additional limit outside of the 10 mils, and that isn't published until your May comes.
I'm just trying to understand risk versus reward, right?
Yes.
Like right now, we know we're at 3%. If we decide not to have it,
Yeah, no,
Then
there is a
where's
I'm
limit.
going to ask a question. We've spent I know you haven't finished your presentation. The question I would have here, is there someone here who wants to continue on this presentation at this time?
I'm ready to move on.
Okay, then I'm going to say thank you for a very extensive and
Really is.
complete presentation. Certainly, the information here, we can review it also at home, and because we do have a 2-hour limit, and I think we need to progress forward. And would you all give her a hand clap for the effort that she put in, because this is quite an extensive effort, Angelica, and we really appreciate it so much. Yes, yes, sir.
It really
Mr.
is
Phil.
great.
If I may, I just want to thank Angelica for giving this presentation. And in case anybody was wondering who that gentleman sitting over very quietly there, it's our finance director, Larry Wachowski. So thanks for attending, Larry, and allowing Angelica to come.
Okay, so we're back to Article number 5 and presentations for number 5. And I believe at this time, Vice Chair Gom has some suggestions starting on 5.02. Would you like to cover it?
Okay, we'll do 5.02, but when we get to 5.03 and the primary part, those are kind of hand in hand.
We still have to do it one at a time.
I understand. 5.02, all I want to do is currently, all that's required from a candidate is they sign an affidavit that says that they've lived in the city for 2 years. This provides a means by where any citizen can go check out the voter ID. It's a public record, their voter registration, and verify that they in fact have been a resident of the city for 2 years and been a voting, been a part of our electorate for the 2 years prior to. It gives every person in the city a way to check that other than just a simple affidavit, and that's all that it requires.
I'd like to ask the Attorney Smith, I'm trying to read the difference between what it was before and what it is now. It seems like it has the same verbiage, at least 2 years immediately preceding the election, shall be a registered voter residing at the city address. He's mentioning that all you need to do is an affidavit. Is that correct?
They do, we do require an affidavit that states that they meet the requirements to run for office, which includes that they are a registered voter, they reside at a city address, and they've been a registered voter for at least 2 years immediately preceding the election.
And so the affidavit is just them saying, I am, do we check up on that? Is that checked?
No, I am not required. My role is ministerial in nature per statute. So if anybody wanted to challenge, they would have to do so once they get into office.
Okay, and the proposal that he has at this point in time, does that change anything, or does that remain the same?
That requirement just makes it so that they have to be a member of the electorate 2 years in the city before being sworn in the office. Right now, all they have to do is sign an affidavit that says, hey, I've lived here 2 years, and there's no way to go back and check it. There's no requirement to prove it other than that. This gives every citizen that is voting, every voter in the electorate gives them a way on their own to go and check the voter registration and see in fact that that candidate lived in the city for 2 years.
And I understand your point. I'm reading what you're saying here, and I don't see any difference from what I'm seeing right here, because it says, as it stands, it says, it shall be a registered voter. Let me go back. It says,
Lacking the clarification of being able to prove it.
and I don't see where this adds any teeth to making them prove it.
Because you can go to the supervisor of elections website and pull all that person's voter registration information over the years and prove that they lived in the city.
Yeah, agreed. I don't see where that is.
Tied to their voter registration.
It's there right now. It says, shall be a registered voter residing at a city address for 2 years.
Right. but there's no requirement when they file their paperwork during qualifying for them to verify that that 2-year statute is met. It's just taken on the word of the candidate in the form of an affidavit.
Well, you could add a citizenship set of teeth like Ruth added to the.
Yes. O'Neill?
Mrs. Jones, when these individuals are signing an affidavit, is there a process for vetting what they're signing when they go through the qualifications? Rather than just reading the affidavit, taking their word and going forward, are you guys doing what he is suggesting, is doing the research on this candidate?
No, we are not required to vet candidates.
Okay.
That's why we have them sign affidavits swearing that they meet the qualifications.
Good to go.
May I have the attorney to speak for a minute, please?
I just want to augment that. She also has no authority, which is when she's saying that her job is ministerial. If she decided that, well, you know what, I don't really think that person, lived here. She doesn't have the authority as the city clerk to say that that person's name can't be placed upon the ballot. Right. If somebody wanted to challenge that, they would actually have to challenge that in court. A judge has that authority, but she doesn't have that authority.
I'm not saying that's what she's doing. I'm asking her as a city clerk if there is a panel in place doing that, vetting it, rather than waiting for the parade or the circus to take place or someone to get the hunch that, hey, this person I don't think is a qualified member, and going through the process of investigating and finding out, hey, this person did lie, and now we wasted critical time of someone's candidacy. And Commissioner Guam, you are requesting that we put in some type of panel to request this, correct? Or I'm just trying to
Some way
understand.
to verify that,
some way
other
of-
than taking somebody at their word, signing an affidavit.
Do you have
Because-
a like complete articulate verbiage of what we want to amend or put into paper?
No, as a matter of fact, I'm movable in my position, and I see the other side of the argument, and I'm willing to
Now, I
to drop this, but like I said,
I like
I
what you're doing.
just don't like the idea of somebody just being able to sign a piece of paper.
No, I'm with you.
I
and
mean, they're politicians, they lie for a profession.
I'm 100% with you. I'm just trying to help you with this, okay, I want to go forward with that, but what is the solution? Like, we have a problem we're addressing, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, what's the most articulate solution?
Before you
we
go,
can provide
Commissioner Norris, it looked like you wanted to speak, but
Berg already stated that they can already go check out, and that's the solution that I overlooked. So,
You can already do it, so this accomplishes basically nothing.
right, let's move on.
But while we're talking about it, Ruth, do you have to be
Okay.
a citizen to become a council member?
No, you don't have to be a citizen to become a congressman or a senator.
Not according to the charter right now. Not, I know, right? So, I don't want to get ahead of it.
yes, if we can wait till we're recognized. Commissioner Sepp was with her hand up.
Yeah, I've addressed this before, because when I ran, there was a candidate who did not live here long enough to be elected, in my estimation. And we've had several. Randy Fine, for instance, did not even live in the district until he managed to gerrymander and change it. But the problem is, the state has a statute that says she can't verify it. So as a commission, we need to put something in there and say, we want it verified. And just by saying, well, citizens can go look it up, how many people are really going to do that? You're still going to wind up with someone who kind of broke the law by being a candidate. And the only remedy right now is after they're elected, as Teresa said, then somebody has to file a complaint with the FEC, is it? Yeah, with the state, and then that goes to a committee to evaluate, and they investigate it. And if it's found to be correct that this person should not have been qualified, then they remove him. This gets to be very expensive and time-consuming, and we wind up with another empty seat on the council or whatever. So we really need to put something in here that says, we want verification. tell them to bring a utility bill or something as part of it. But leaving it up to the citizens to look it up, unless somebody sticks it in their face, they're not going to know.
I'd just like to give a little bit of history as to why this is also important, is we actually had a mayor in the past who signed an affidavit saying that he'd never committed a felony and he was eligible to run for office. And he was eventually removed by the governor because he had a felony drug conviction. And the same governor later restored his rights and he was reelected to be mayor. But the point being is he signed an affidavit. And now we're looking at the same thing.
Commissioner Norris, did you have something you wanted to say? Oh, I thought your hand went up. Commissioner Rue?
Mark was first.
We have
Basically,
about 11 minutes, so.
Okay, basically, this has historically been a problem for the citizens, I will tell you that, because I hear a lot of citizen things in my classes and stuff like that. If the city has a rule, and has any sort of rule concerning candidates at all, they are on the hook for validating those rules. Because you just can't say, here it is, here's the rule, and then if you want to object to it, you got to file a lawsuit. That's a ridiculous statement. That is ridiculous, because if the city put up the requirements for a candidate to file in this city, they should be responsible for vetting every single data point in that document.
Commissioner Miller.
I was just going to try to summarize if I understood you correctly. I mean, basically what we're looking for is like when you hire on for a new job, HR runs a background check on you, right, to validate those things. And so it sounds like what we're asking for here is a background check on any candidate that decides to run for office. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know if I'm hearing it right. And then who has the authority to do that? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Commissioner O'Neill.
To help push this, it seems like majority of us are on the same page here, so kind of fast tracking since we're sub 10 minutes. Ma'am, being our city attorney, what options do we have for implementing a solution to what we all seem to have a concern about?
The problem is elections are actually, by and large, preempted. So you can say, hey, we want these people to be vetted. The problem you're going to have is you vet them and say the vetting comes out that this person shouldn't be here. And then you all are going to want to know why she's not prohibiting, or why council is not prohibiting that person that you all vetted from being on the ballot. They don't have the authority. You would actually have to, it's happening in some of the cities down south, Miami area. You'd actually have to petition the court to actually enjoin the supervisor elections from placing that person on the ballot. So what you create is you get all this information, and people are going to expect, hey, you have this, you've got to do something with it. She has no legal ability to do anything with that. The only thing you've got is to enjoin in the beginning, you got afterwards, or certainly if you can show that the person lied, is to seek the state attorney, because they do swear under penalties of perjury that information is true. But there isn't anything that the city clerk or the city council are going to be able to do. So that's my caution, is it creates an expectation that you've got this information, you're going to do something with it, and they legally can't.
Can I?
If that person has signed and attested, there is no way for her, and they've completed the other qualification, other things, they've given their money, they've done everything. She has no ability to stop them from being put on the ballot.
Wait, because why?
Because the election law the statute gives authority and does not give that authority to her. The way in which you want to challenge somebody's residency requirements is you can do an injunction beforehand, but she doesn't have that authority. And the injunction isn't even against her. You're not enjoining the city clerk. What you're enjoining is the supervisor of elections from putting them on the ballot.
So in other words, they're innocent until proven guilty. and we have to prove them guilty. In other words, it's not up to her or the city to find out. I mean, the stipulations are there. They have to be a resident for 2 years, et cetera, whatever the list is. You apply. It would be like you applying for your license. You apply for your license. Well, they don't, quote unquote, do a background check as you go to prepare a license necessarily. You go in, you fill the form, you apply it until it goes through the legal process, and then you find out, oh, wait a minute, this person's not allowed to have a license, and they get caught. That might be a bad example there, but somewhat applicable. They're innocent as long as they meet the requirements. You have to assume that they're telling you the truth as they apply.
Okay, going back to the meet the requirements part, that is a duty of the city.
Right, which they, as it says, they must be registered voter for the city address for 2 years.
Again, okay, if the city requires it, then the city must vet it. The city wants to say, here are the requirements to be a candidate, you must fulfill those requirements.
Good. If they apply, attorney, do they have to show their, that they have been there for 2 years as a registered voter?
No. They are signing the affidavit.
The court has said that
Okay.
her role, the
Can I
city
just-
clerk's role is ministerial.
I see the hand, but go ahead since you started.
Just to clarify it, they can go in there and sign the affidavit and say they meet all the requirements, but they've not actually violated the charter or broken any laws until they're elected and sworn into office.
Okay, now,
The problem is the city has done background checks. When Filiberto was removed, all of the 30-something candidates had to pay $25 to have a background check. So,
Council decided to do that.
yeah.
well, we're the charter, so maybe we should decide to do this.
One last question. Can it be expected that as they apply, rather than just quote-unquote affidavit, that they must have the documentation with them in the application?
What documentation?
The voter's registration. At this point, it's just voter registration. They've been in the place for 2 years. I mean, if you apply for food stamps, you have to show certain documentation. If you apply for going into office, rather than just the affidavit, is it permissible to just say, yes, please bring proof of residency for 2 years and voter registration? Is that permissible? Is that asking too much? Is that too difficult? Is it legal? Thank you.
You would have to have, you have the if you came up with, well, you have to have these documents. They provide these documents and they say that they're sufficient. If you then have this process where she says that they're not sufficient, they then have to have some mechanism for being able to have some due process, because I know we're trying to prevent fraud, but at the same time, this is something which is why city clerks typically, their duties are ministerial, where it could be abused to prevent people that you do not want running in the political process. That's why they've kind of gotten the person she works for council. So the people that may be running for her boss, you're asking her to be able to say that you can't run. That's kind of not what the system was set up for. You know, if you're going to be able to keep somebody, the voters from being able to vote for somebody, it shouldn't be the person that works for the body. It should be somebody, a neutral party, which is the way in which the system is set up.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Weinberg.
If I may, Tom's the one who brought this up, suggested it. Tom withdrew his I understand that, so let's move on.
And did you have something you want to say? Yes, please come to the microphone.
Butch Oran, 219, well, you don't need my address. Butch Oran. That document that they sign, is that not a legal document that they can be brought charges against for fraud, right? Or I'm sorry?
Only after they're elected.
No. If I go down to the voter's office and he's signed up to run, no, I'm just using an example. He's signed up to run and he hasn't voted in the last 2 years, there's the suit right there. No, that's my suit as a citizen.
Correct.
Has the right to do that.
Right. Correct.
Right, thank you.
So since it's 8 o'clock,
Right.
I'm going to may I make a suggestion to you? In your proposals, which some of them are very good, rather than a proposal, if you maybe could submit the next time we meet, what you want it to say for then it to be discussed. And for an
No, because
example,
that would require legal wording, and that's what the city attorney is for. What we should be doing is coming up with intent.
okay. Amen. It is 8 o'clock. We've accomplished nothing.
Real quick, can I just say thank you to Teresa and Patricia for y'all's hard work tonight and every other night. You really helped us. Thank you.
I know we're adjourning. How can we, is there a way? There's freedom of speech. I understand. Everybody has a right to speak. At some point, we go speaking and speaking, but I want to say something, I want to say something, is there a way we can shorten this discussion that would be permissible, or tailor it better, so that we can move forward? If we have to take, 2 hours to do one thing, yes, sir.
I'm going to speak from my heart and be quite honest. I was rather appalled when I seen that there was a limit put on these meetings. This is so important. I mean, this is the city charter, and there's 10 people out of 150,000 who have this task before us, and you're going to do it in 2-hour meetings. I found that very objectionable, and I'm sorry I wasn't here to object to it at the time of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was given to us. I don't think we voted on it necessarily. However, we have the ability to add more meetings if we so choose. We can add more meetings and lengthen them. It just came to that place where we said 2 hours.
Sorry, I wasn't here for the vote either. Is that a hard limit? There's no way to add to that?
Could you remind us, Therese?
Or how did that come about? I wasn't here.
That is, well, it came about, one of the commissioners brought it up, and they took a vote, and it passed. But of course, this commission can overturn that. That is up to the commission. I do want to add that for the next meeting, we're still going to have these 2 items come back, because we haven't completed them yet. We're also going to have Ms. Kaufhold's suggestions from the title, Article 5. Yep. Yep.
Can I make a motion to limit presentations to like an hour, or is that something that we can?
I'm sure we can put a limit
we went
on
over an hour.
presentations.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I would like to suggest for the next meeting on the agenda is that we consider repealing that 2-hour rule.
May I have a second?
I'll second it. Yeah.
Okay, proposed by Gom, seconded by Norris. All in favor? By saying aye? Aye?
Aye.
All against? So moved. Thank you for your dedication and for your desire to bring this to a full discussion. Appreciate the audience for being here. I hope you enjoyed the view, and maybe next time you can add a little more to what's happening. And may you all have a good night. God bless you all.